Hello, it's Dalagonash here again, and it's time for another little review type little thingy. And this time it's, well, as you can see, it's Halo 4. Halo 4 being the first Halo game from 343 Industries, which was the company Microsoft set up to make Halo games. Now, that obviously puts Halo 4 in a very interesting position, because Halo 4 is where 343 have to say, we've got it, we know what we're doing, this is our franchise. They've got to simultaneously show Halo fans that they can deliver the game that they want, whilst also saying that we're not just developing in Bungie's shadow, which puts a lot of pressure on a game. And I went into it expecting pretty good things. I mean, they got Frankie O'Connor from Bungie. He was obviously in charge of Halo sort of as a brand over at Bungie, and he went over, so he's still pulling the strings behind the scenes. But aside from that, fairly sure it's mostly new talent. I know they've got the audio guy. They robbed him from Konami. He used to do the Metal Gear sounds, and the composer did stuff with pop music, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, I'm just looking at this as new Halo, and when I first played it, I thought they'd absolutely nailed it. To be honest, I went down to play it with a friend. I always play new Halo games with a friend, Chris Smith. We've been doing it since Halo 3, and we've played through them, and we always enjoy it because Halo has always sort of existed as a co-op game largely. A lot of people do play it in co-op, and sort of more recent games have embraced that. So Halo 3, Chief and Arbiter, Halo ODST had the team, Halo Reach. Again, you were part of a team, you made your own Spartan, so they've sort of embraced it. And we played it and we enjoyed it. There were a couple of wiggly bits which didn't really fit in with the co-op. Largely a couple of the boss battles and a few of the other sequences which actually forced it into a single screen thing where I, as the second player, did nothing, which wasn't very good. But those aside, we really thought they'd nailed it. We had fun. There were a lot of little Halo-y like little features, like we would have a ghost and we'd knock its wings off and we'd try and squeeze it into places where it really didn't belong. And those are that sort of malleability of the game engine is what's endeared Halo to myself over the years, as well as the actual core combat. But I found that after we'd finished playing it and when I left and when I was travelling home, I sort of found my mind lingering more on what Halo 4 was lacking rather than what it did right. For example, there were a lot of fights in the game, but where were the big Scarab fights, the big poster fights? Halo 3's Scarabs are some of the most entertaining things, and they persist long after you finished Halo 3. You're like, oh, that fight was amazing, where you could like ramp a mongoose onto it and land on it, and amazing. Halo 4 doesn't really have anything like that. Its big moments are all very set in how you approach them and very obvious. So where were the Scarabs? Where were the truly open battlegrounds? There are a couple of large areas, but there's nothing on the scale of some of the previous Halo games. Why were there QTs for the boss fights, which were only for player one? And were the Prometheans actually a fun enemy to fight? I mean, the Prometheans are a completely new alien race that you fight in this game alongside the Covenant, and you'll see that the gameplay segment I'm playing behind this narrative is actually my favourite chapter from the game, because it's the only chapter that features Covenant and Prometheans, and they're fighting each other as well as you. And I thought that really echoed Halo 1 with the Covenant and the Flood, and I thought that was amazing. So that's why I've put this video behind it, because I think it's the strongest area of the game. Were the Prometheans actually fun to fight? Possibly not. They are very cowardly as a race. I like the mechanics behind them. They're very mechanically designed, so you have small grunts that run at you, and then you've got big knights, and then there are also the flying ones which provide cover support, and they will also even revive Promethean enemies. So on a mechanical level they make a lot of sense, but when you're actually fighting them and the knights I died there, whoops. When you're actually fighting them and the knights are teleporting away, especially when you're playing on the harder difficulties, that makes them an annoying enemy to fight rather than a fun one, because you really have to sort of chase after them, and then it may have been more entertaining to fight them if they were an aggressive enemy, because the Covenant are already quite defensive. They duck behind things. So it would have been interesting if the Prometheans actually zipped towards you, and when they were in danger of death, bear down on you with their mass, because their melee attacks are really strong. But anyway, there are some sort of light instances where the game shines. As I say, this chapter is brilliant, and if we're being perfectly honest, you could drop the Covenant Master Chief and a Warthog onto Bodmin Moor and you'd have a fun combat situation. Such is the quality of Halo's foundations. So 343, largely that is what they've done. They've put the Covenant into these locations and boom, you've got an appealing FPS, because the Covenant are still one of the most amusing enemies to fight, especially when lots of other FPSs are just doing, man target shooting where they just flop down. A lot of FPSs nowadays just against the AI and story aren't that fun to play. Halo is still a fun FPS to play, and so from that regard 343 had a pretty easy job. However, it's where they've gone for looks as opposed to scope is where it falters. I like to call it Halo 2-itis, where they've sacrificed sort of the broad gameplay just so the game can look gorgeous, and it does look gorgeous. You look at this and you say, how is this running on an Xbox 360? Some of it looks absolutely stunning, but then when you think back and you think, well, actually, were any of the encounters as amazing as the Scarabs in Halo 3, or was any of it as creative as the Last Stand in Halo Reach? Probably not. And it falters in its creativity. A lot of it is relying on the series' past glories, and sort of outside of the Matrix like jargon-filled narrative direction. So you get to a point in the narrative where it's throwing words around and it's like, what? Unless you've read the books, you will get lost. And whilst I like a lot of the narrative stuff they've done with Chief, they've made him a very fallible character. That sort of stuff is interesting. See, look, I'm taking that ghost up there. I shouldn't be taking that up there. See, when it does that, it's quite good and it's quite amusing, but sort of that's me finding ways to amuse myself, and to be honest, 90% of the game is pressing buttons, and 10% is going, really, more of those little Promethean dog things in a corridor. Is that what I'm fighting? As a game, it winds up more being entertaining because of Halo's lineage, rather than the steps 343 have taken to improve upon Bungie's work. I mean, most of their additions, like the Promethean weapons and the Prometheans themselves, are either alright or straight out not worth shouting about. So I think it shows that 343 understands Halo's gameplay, and it shows that they can make a good looking game. I think the next generation of consoles will see their true stab at Halo. If this is their Halo 2, then I can't wait for honestly, I genuinely can't wait for their Halo 3. They could make it astounding. Ultimately, Halo 4 is a good homage to Halo, which just lacks that oomph to go the extra mile that it needs to go for 343 to genuinely make the franchise their own. Just as a little itty bitty footnote right here at the end of the video, one thing I forgot, the music in this game was an utter disappointment. I'm used to big bombast themes going, this is your moment, this is your time to shine. All I got in Halo